Hey guys, Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Fire Force Season 2, Episode 3. And, okay, so if I had to slap a certain theme on for this episode, it would definitely be escalation and human nature. Because immediately after Shinra leaves the company for headquarters, the wheels just kind of go into overdrive with both the Fire Force and White-Clad with both the Fire Force and White-Clad like pretty much making their moves almost immediately. However, the difference being is that on the Fire Force side, the 8th is very much on their own for now, and while there is some merit to needing more evidence in order to warrant uniting the Fire Force companies together, at the same time, it also does continue to expose the flaws of the Fire Forces as an organization, or at least when it comes to them being under the rule, under the control of the Hodge EMA Corporation. While at the same time also showing just how important the 8th is compared to the others, since they're the only Fire Force that are not really tied down to the typical rules and regulations. And with the little wink and nod the chief practically gave to Obi in this episode, you can tell there's something deeper going on with the Hajime Corporation's role in this, more than just your standard like bureaucratic nonsense. Like the chief almost seems like he wants them to kind of. The chief almost kind of lets it slip that he wants Obi and the 8th in order to expose like Prince Hajime, but yeah, there's definitely something more going on just the fact that the base that Hajime was even brought up to begin with in the conversation. It tells us there's definitely something more going on there for sure. Now we get introduced to a new character, Inca, who, if what is said can be believed, is not only part of an entirely new fourth generation, which not only made her a target for the White-Clad, but it also creates the very real possibility, based on this episode, that she is in fact the Fifth Pillar. And just the fact that Inca is both basically a fourth generation and the Fifth Pillar, it creates, as well as a target for both the Fire Force, kind of playing Fire Force and White-Clad sort of playing this tug of war with her. It kind of creates this very interesting dynamic in the sense where she's very likely someone who doesn't want to be saved or protected. She basically she doesn't want to. She just wants to do her own thing. Because even more interesting than that is that even more interesting than all of that though is that up to this point, those with the power of Adola Burst have either been associated with the Fire Force or the White-Clad. But with Inca, she's kind of just your everyday average citizen street thug, and it kind of gives a very interesting and somewhat refreshing perspective from those that not only fall through the cracks of the two groups, but that yeah, if an everyday average citizen did possess powers like that, they would more than likely use them for their own for selfish acts. And maybe not always in the same way that Inca was using them in this episode, but let's be real here, if humanity had powers like this, like the kind that they have in the Fire Force world, more often than not, we would use them for our own self-interest. So it definitely shows that side of the coin. And even though Inca is largely throughout this episode was just kind of interested in doing her own thing, like creating her own brand of chaos and whatnot, you can see that she's kind of warming up to. You can see that she is kind of warming up to basically what for instance the White-Clad is selling her. Like they're offering the freedom to just kind of do. They're kind of offering the freedom in order for her to do whatever the hell she wants. Whereas the Fire Force have good intentions with trying to protect her, but they're also limiting her, but they're also limiting her freedom. So it's it's one of those weird things where or the more or the more appealing, where in Inca's case the more appealing of the two options is probably going to be to go with the White-Clad, because they're offering her freedom to do whatever the hell she wants with her power. And so yeah, like it definitely shows how Inca is definitely is definitely one who cares about kind of just being free, doing her own thing. And she doesn't care who she harms in the. She honestly doesn't seem to care other than what she can do. She's only kind of interested in what she wants to do. So yeah. Um, and yeah, let's talk adaptation of this episode, because to me this was oddly one of the episodes that truly let me know that David Production were finally able to break free of the Kyoani incident. And don't get me wrong, there was still the obvious signs of scenes being like toned down compared to the manga, but we see like in this episode we basically see some bodies dropping, getting engulfed in flames. Like it's pretty damn gruesome, and it's a situation where I'm not saying we need that see that stuff all the time, but the biggest problem with season one was that because they needed to cut out certain moments from the manga due to the awkward circumstances, there was a sort of lack of impact to the threat of the infernals, and inadvertently toned down the fear of the combustion anomaly that the combustion anomaly had on society. But by being allowed to show us these moments again, it returns that greater sense of urgency back to the series. And and again, like pretty much going back to Inca, it also shows how these events can affect a person. Well, like I said, with Inca, she like after what happened with Inca, she basically developed the whole basically developed the mentality of a pyromaniac. Like her whole thing is that, again, she just wants to do whatever the fuck she wants with her power. She doesn't. She basically does not freaking care about anyone. She just wants freedom to kind of just burn shit. She just wants the freedom to burn everything, and she gets a thrill out of it. So yeah, Inca an interest is definitely an interesting, and again, it's definitely an interesting case where we definitely see that other side of the coin, that there are people who just, in the words of the Joker, in the words of Alfred from The Dark Knight, there are some people in this world who just want to watch the world burn, and Inca is kind of one of those people. Um, of course, I definitely have to talk art and animation in this episode, because while not a very action-heavy episode, I definitely have to talk about art and animation in this episode, because while not a very action-heavy episode like you'd expect, both were both art and animation were still very much on point this week, because everything looked amazing, and for what they had to work with for what they had to work with, everything was just visually beautiful to look at. And like I said, it's not because and the thing is, with in this case, it's not because of anything major, but in the smaller moments, like the way the characters move or how they manage to capture a certain moment on screen, like the diagrams of how Inca controls her powers, Inca's flashback, or even just the still image group shot of Scope 8. Like all these moments and scenes were just visually well done. Of course, when we did get to the fighting, that's when the art and animation just kind of exploded on screen, and I mean that in the good way, because yeah, just art and animation, it was on point this episode. I can't lie. So yeah, I think it's clear that season 2 is gonna be a better season, like visually at least. Um, and of course, when we get to the end, and also, if there's anything I think that the back half of this episode proved, is that Charon is not only one of the White-Clad's top tier fighters, but he's someone you can't just take head on. Like, you need an actually clear strategy going in order to face him. Like with Charon in this episode, he was pretty much just wrecking. He was just pretty much just wrecking Shinra's shit. Oh, he was just tossing him around, kicking him, punching him, just doing all this shit that was like, yeah, you're just pretty much a bug. I'm gonna squash you. Like, it's clear when you face Charon, you need a freaking strategy going in. You can't just face him willy nilly like you usually do. And yeah, this is unfortunately a little bit of a hard lesson that Shinra's learning right now. So yeah. But with that said, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Unless Crunchyroll. Dead Night of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.